LG Nexus 4, Google's latest and greatest Android flagship phone, released in the US in late November, early December. This is going to be a full review or an honest review of my use with it over the past couple of days and how it compares to some of the market leaders like the Galaxy S3 and the Apple iPhone 5. So jumping right in, talk a little bit about the hardware of this guy. It's an okay design, in my opinion. I've seen better. I've seen a lot worse. I think that the phone itself feels kind of thick in your hand. I think it's very blocky. The way they've designed this phone in terms of its overall shape doesn't feel as nice in your hand as, say, the iPhone 5 or even the Galaxy S3. The S3 is thinner. The S3, I think, is a bit lighter. It's kind of hard to tell. They might be very close. I don't know the spec, but the feeling is that the S3 just the little bit of difference in thinness lends a lot to how the phone feels in your hand. Even though they're both kind of plasticky, I know the Nexus has glass on the back, which is nice. They're both they both feel a little bit plasticky. Like if you were to compare these guys to, let's say, the iPhone 5 with its aluminum back. All three of these feel different, but the Nexus 4 and the S3 feel most similar in terms of how the construction feels in your hand, but this just to me feels chunky. There's something about it that has a thick feel to it, and I don't really like it. I would much prefer to hold on to an S3. It just has a better feel to it. But moving away from overall design, we'll get into some of the details. The glass on the back is pretty cool. It has this little sort of I don't know if you'd want to call it reflective, luminescent kind of, you can see the sparklies in there, and that kind of makes it look nice to look at. But I think Apple already showed us that we don't really like glass backs on our phones because they tend to break when you drop them, and there's definitely been reports of people doing that on these phones already, so don't know how I feel about the glass on the back of this guy. You have your standard power button over here on the right side of the phone, volume rocker on the left, 3.5mm jack, noise cancelling microphone, regular microphone, micro USB, a couple screw holes here, and then your standard speaker, front facing camera, pretty similar to all the other designs we've seen lately, rear camera with flash. So, you know, all in all, the phone is a decent design. It's just probably not as good as some of the other designs we have on the market today. Again, it is a very, very cheap phone at $299 for the 8GB version and $349 for the 16GB version. So, for the price, is it worth it? Absolutely, just from a design standpoint. And we'll talk more about the software and kind of the features of the phone. So what is a Nexus? A lot of people might be wondering why they would choose to buy this phone over, say, a Galaxy S3 or an iPhone 5 and what the advantages and disadvantages are. And so the idea behind the Nexus line is that it's Google's sort of untouched, pure Android experience phone that's unlocked and available for anybody to use on any carrier, and it's kind of the way they intended Android to be. And so Google kind of markets this as a developer phone or an Android purist phone. And so they price it at a point where people can afford it, and it's off contract, and it makes sense, and blah, blah, blah. And so I think, you know, it's unfortunately what they've done, though, with the Nexus 4 is that because they've sacrificed some things on the inside and some design on the outside to make it a cheaper price point, they've actually sort of excluded a lot of the nice things that you find in some of the more expensive phones. And so instead of being a top of the line phone, it's a good phone, but you're not getting everything that you would get in some of these other handsets. And we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But just to talk about why you would want to buy this, first of all, it's super cheap. It's a great phone for the price. It's unlocked, it's carrier free. You can take it around the world without having to deal with roaming charges. You can put any SIM card you want in it. You can use it with AT&T, you can use it with T-Mobile, you can use it with any carrier overseas that has a GSM SIM card. And so that gives it a lot of flexibility. It's also going to receive the latest and greatest updates from Google the moment they come out. And so when they're released, like Android 5 or whatever the next step is going to be, right now it's running 4.1, or actually 4.2. which is a variant of Jelly Bean, one of the latest ones. So you can be assured that you're going to get the latest information from Google as far as software updates go. Great support from Google for the newest developments of Android. So that's pretty nice. And a lot of times people will complain, especially with Android fragmentation, that carriers like AT&T or Samsung or HTC takes them a long time to update their phones to the latest software from Google. And so Apple, on the other hand, is pretty good about that. A lot of times as soon as iOS 6 is released, most people can download it that same day, get it updated, get it onto their devices, and go with it. So Apple's really good about the updates. Android's pretty bad about the updates, and it's not necessarily Google's fault, it's more the carrier's fault. And so what do you get for your money when you go ahead and throw down $300 or pretty darn close to $300 for a new Nexus 4? Well, you get a pretty nicely designed phone that has an awesome display. Screen on this guy is great. It's nice and sharp, good picture, or good pixel density. Compares to all the other phones in terms of this lineup with its number of pixels and how sharp the text is and retina display and blah blah blah. But I will make a comment about the color, and I don't know if this is a difference between AMOLED and LCD or what, and I'm not sure about the technology behind it, but I'm kind of ranking these guys in order from best to worst. iPhone 5, retina display, fantastic. I still think this is one of the best screens out there on the market right now. I would compare this to the HTC One X in terms of screen quality. Screen quality on the iPhone and the One X are probably the best in this group. I've yet to test a Nokia Lumia 900, so can't really compare it, but out of these three, I like the iPhone Retina display the best. Galaxy S3 next, I like the AMOLED screen on this one. I like how the colors sort of pop, and the blacks are dark, and the blues are dark, and everything's sort of saturated and nice looking. The Nexus 4, I don't know, maybe I'm just used to the higher resolution screens, not resolution, but higher quality screens, but this, if you look at these phones, they're kind of set up the same. The Nexus just looks a little bit washed out, and I don't know what the deal is with that. Like, the blacks aren't as black. You can see how this kind of looks gray in here, and this is definitely black. The colors are different. It's kind of like a different color gamut. Reds aren't as red. Maybe it's just the screen technology, but it looks strange to me for some reason. After using the Retina display and after using the AMOLED screen on the Galaxy S3, I picked this up, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I mean, it's not that the color's bad. It's just that the color is different. And so for me, having used these other phones, it's sort of shocking when I pick this up because it doesn't look like the other ones. And so if you've never owned one of these newer smartphones and you pick up a Nexus 4 and just look at it by itself, you'll probably be shocked at how good the display is and how nice the colors look and how everything feels and runs. But just keep that in mind. If you have come from a nice screen like a One X or an S3 or an iPhone 5, this might be a little bit jarring to see for the first time. And so what about smoothness? How do they compare in terms of smoothness and OS lag and all the other great things about Android when you look at the two? We'll get the iPhone out of the way for now. As far as the way the phone runs, I think it's fantastic. I haven't noticed any slowdowns compared to, say, the S3. The software being Jelly Bean, they've done a really, really great job in terms of speeding up everything. Everything's a lot more fluid. The lag is pretty much gone. For almost everything I've noticed, there's hardly any lag. Very smooth, very nice. Applications launch quickly. Text input is very fast. The keyboard is fast. You get that great new swipe addition or swipe style addition to the keyboard, and so you can now do this, and it will automatically predict something. So, everything, switching between apps, opening apps, closing apps, typing, texting, calling, it's all really, really fast on the Nexus 4. You're getting a great hardware-software combination. I think I haven't had any complaints at all as far as the software goes. In that same regard, though, if we talk about things like battery life definitely worse on the Nexus 4 than the S3. I've unplugged these phones at the exact same time this morning at about 7:30. Just been playing around with them this morning. They're both set on full brightness. Nexus 4 down to 88%, Galaxy S3 down to 94%. I do have my SIM card in here, so it probably is using a little bit more battery life, having the connection to the cell tower than this guy. But after a day of use or so out of the Nexus 4, the battery's about dead. I come home from work, go out for dinner, come back about 8:30, the phone needs a charge. Galaxy S3 can last me all day and into the next day. So Battery life not so great on the N4, and it's also a non-removable battery, so keep that in mind. You'd have to have a battery backup or some way to plug this guy in at the end of the day if you wanted to go all night and take it out to a bar, or go on a long plane trip or something. You would need some extra power. And so in that same regard, there's also no removable storage in the new Nexus 4. So, a lot of people talk about, well, hey, the Galaxy S3, you take the back cover off and you've got this great micro SD slot where you can throw a 32 gigabyte micro SD card in there, and then you're all set. Put your movies on, put your music on, swap it around, and you're pretty much good to go. And that's a very good point, because the Nexus 4 only comes in 8 and 16 gigabyte varieties. It's very reminiscent of Apple and how they do their 8, 16, and 32, or 16, 32, 64. Kind of old, I think. Kind of old style. I don't know why people wouldn't do removable storage. There's really no downside to not having removable storage. It just adds some flexibility and some user customization to their device. And so I think that's kind of a negative. But, personally, I don't really care, because all my stuff is in the cloud. I don't have any music stored on my computers. I don't have any movies. Well, I have some movies, but everything is available via streaming. I keep a lot of my stuff in Dropbox. Dropbox app, you can stream it right down. Netflix, Google Music. So for me, that's not an issue, but for some people that might be a pretty big issue. So keep that in mind too if you're thinking about buying a Nexus 4. One last thing to talk about here is the cellular radios that are built into these phones. The Nexus 4 is advertised as not having LTE, so there is no capable LTE radio inside this phone. And so what does that mean? That means that its default radio connection to your cellular provider is going to be HSPA. So 3G, or if you talk to AT&T, that's 4G, but not 4G LTE. Regardless, it's 3G. This is a 3G technology phone. These guys are 4G technology, so the Galaxy S3 has LTE, the new iPhone 5 has LTE. What does that mean in the real world? Well, your browsing on the phone is going to be a tad bit slower, probably, but your biggest difference is going to be if you tether. If you guys tether for any of this, if you decide to use your phone to tether your laptop if you're traveling, or if you don't have an internet connection at home and you want to tether, Galaxy S3, LTE capable, iPhone 5, LTE capable. You can both get super fast internet via your phone to your laptop, and so that makes a huge difference between LTE and 3G if you're going to use your laptop for work and you want to tether to your cell phone. LTE is super fast. I mean, you're talking 20-30 megabits down. It's actually faster than our DSL and cable we have up here in Alaska, so our wireless now is faster than our home internet, which is pretty sad. But the new Nexus 4 does not have LTE. Now, there's an asterisk to that, like most things. People took this phone apart and actually found an LTE radio in here. It's just sort of software disabled. And so maybe if you're a developer, or if you're an Android hacker and you like to root your phone and install custom software, there might be a ROM available that has LTE support. I can't speak for the future. I have no idea if that's going to be the case, but a lot of times these Android guys are so good where they will be able to find something, a loophole, and take full advantage of it. And so there's great support online for these devices. And so if there's a way, or if there's a will, there's a way, people like to say. And so I think if there is hardware support for LTE, people will eventually find a way to use it. And so that's kind of cool. So you might be able to take full advantage of the LTE radio in this phone in the near future. So one final thing to talk about is the camera. I know there was a lot of complaints from the Galaxy Nexus about the poor camera quality, and Google have definitely made an improvement with this one. They've the camera resolution is really nice, the great low light images. This is some quinoa salad here. Haven't taken a lot of pictures yet, and frozen OE 800 bottle. But the quality of the camera is great. It's up to snuff, I would say, with the Galaxy S3 and with the iPhone 5. Also, Google has introduced a lot of these neat little camera tricks. They've got some panoramic stuff and some, I forget what they call this, photosphere, I think is what it's called, where you can actually, it kind of uses the built-in gyroscope to take, you could take basically 3D, not 3D, but 360-degree panorama pictures of what's around, which is kind of cool. But that software, that'll get ported to the newer devices like the S3 if you guys like to root your phones. But kind of a neat feature, definitely cool. So all in all, to wrap up, I think this is a good phone. I don't necessarily knock it too much. I think that it does have some weaknesses, but all these phones have weaknesses. And so do the strengths outweigh the weaknesses for the amount of money that you pay? I think absolutely. I think if you can buy this phone for $299 brand new, that's a damn good deal. That's a steal. You look at these phones off contract, $650 for the base iPhone, $650 I think for the base S3. You could buy 2 of these for that same price, and you're getting probably 80 or 90% of the functionality of these phones in this guy right here. So for the cost, it's really good. Now, are you having some sacrifices? Sure. Like I said before, the screen definitely to me seems a bit weird. The thickness of it kind of bothers me a little bit. Lack of LTE bothers me a little bit. And so when I add up the negatives for the phone, for me, and I'm a techno geek, techno snob, I like my phones, the S3 is still a better device in my opinion. But is it $400 different? That's for you to decide. I can't make the decision for you. But from a pure standpoint of which would I choose and which do I carry around with me on a daily as a daily phone, it's the S3. But if my iPhone and S3 decided to explode tomorrow, I would certainly be happy using the Nexus 4. It's a great phone, and I think you'd like it. So don't forget to check out my other videos. I've got a lot of reviews of these phones and others. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.